Okay. If there is no objection, we are back from executive session. And now items requiring action following executive section. We have items that are required to be presented by Mr. Ragsdale.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to ask Mr. Adams to bring those items requiring action following executive session, and also remind the board that we have 3 separate motions that will need to be made today.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Ragsdale, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We do indeed have 3. I believe, first of all, we have a motion to be made regarding a personnel tribunal.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Scamhorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion in the matter of employee Charita Pugh. I make the motion to uphold the findings and recommendations of the tribunal dated November the 7th and the 14th.
Mr. Scamhorn, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Banks, seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of upholding the motion, raise your hand. Do we have any opposed? No. Okay, next.
Thank you, sir. For our next item, I believe we have a land matter.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Scamahorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to hereby move that the board approve the following real estate contract. Purchase of real property and improvements on approximately 2.70 acres, including a 38,323 square foot office and warehouse building at 580 Fairground Street, Marietta, Georgia. Parentheses, tax parcel number 17035900150, close parentheses, for $4,213,000 plus ancillary costs, including inspection fees, closing costs, and et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scamahorn. We have a motion. Do we have a second? I saw Mr. Wheeler's finger first. Mr. Wheeler seconds. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, raise their hand. All right, that is 6-0. All right, next.
Thank you, sir. Finally, we have the good old-fashioned Human Resources Personnel Report for today, November 15th, 2017. The administration recommends the approval of the identified employment actions of those individuals listed on the Personnel Action Report as discussed in executive session. We do not have any principal level or higher position recommendations today, so that concludes today's Human Resources Personnel Report.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do I hear a motion? All right. Mr. Sweeney?
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation that we accept the superintendent's personnel action report as presented.
All right. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second? Mr. Scamahorn seconds. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of upholding the motion, raise their hand. Okay. I count 5. All those opposed? You're abstaining?
No vote. No, I'm not abstaining. No vote.
Is that an abstention? Technically it's an abstention. All right, so Mr. Banks is abstaining. That's what a no vote is. I'm going to trust my parliamentarian/lawyer for that one, Mr. Banks. Okay, now moving along. We have the approval of the agenda. If there is no objection, our agenda is approved. And now this brings us to board remarks, and we'll start with Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Scamahorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a couple things. I'll start off with our staff. Mr. Superintendent, I do not know who put these together, but they're excellent documents, the CTAE and the programs. I like this much better than me trying to roll up that big chart with the different programs. So I hope it didn't cost an arm and a leg, but I would ask, are these available, extra copies available? Yes. They are? Okay. Now, yeah, you push the red button. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, you can get me later. So, but thank you. Very, very, very well done. Second thing, I would like to thank Pickett Mills and the faculty and the students there. They had a program, lasted about 40, 45 minutes, I think. And it was a Veterans Day program. It was primarily performed by 4th and 5th graders. And I thought they were young adults. That's how smart they were. And they honored the veterans and a Marine Corps Master Sergeant Henry Holly was there, and he's I think he's about 92, and he's a World War II veteran in the Pacific Theater, and it was an honor for me to get to meet him. Finally, I'll save till next month the specific names of our fallen heroes, our first responders, but it's being in a holiday season, please keep families of first responders, particularly police and firefighters, in your prayers. Keep their families in your thoughts and prayers. And I will say thank you and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Scammahorn. Ms. Thayer.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to briefly say that Dr. Stanley Wrinkle did pass away. He was assistant superintendent in the school system and made a great contribution to the schools here and helped create the foundation that our school system was built upon. So he was a great loss, and we send our condolences to that family and to his huge larger family of people who have retired from the school system who are still here, and to our community at large for him. And then also I want to thank our principals again. I was looking at the CCRPI scores and looking at the tremendous growth that we experienced in those. It's just phenomenal when you look at those. So thank you to each one of our principals and teachers who made such a tremendous difference in those scores again. We're all very, very appreciative of everything that you did in those. So thank you. And as Mr. Scammahorn said, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thayer. Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say, first of all, welcome to Jennifer Lawson. She is our interim chief academic officer. So this is her first meeting in that capacity. So welcome aboard, and look forward to seeing you many, many more months. Also, Mr. Sweeney is I'm sure going to mention this, but Walton High School football team is in the playoff. They won their first playoff game, so I won't go any further than that. Also, I want to compliment many of the schools in the Post 5 post that have been doing fundraisers since the start of school, and several of them have gone over the $50,000 mark. So, in fact, some of them are trying to get up to the $80,000 mark. So, they are raising a lot of money. And also, I want to say that this past weekend was our Veterans Day recognition, and for all the veterans, it's a unique period every year that we celebrate and honor our veterans, those that are present and those who have gone to a better land, to a better place. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. I'm going to move. Mr. Wheeler came up with something. We'll come around to Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It would be negligent to not mention the Still Elementary Veterans Day Assembly. Had the privilege to attend that again this year, and it's just an outstanding assembly with the community and the veterans, and I thank all the veterans that came for their service, and Still for doing a great job with it. It's a great thing.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo some of the comments. First of all, relative to the Veterans Day celebration, I extend a great appreciation to the event that was hosted by the Cobb Chamber of Commerce. The recognition that they had a luncheon, and one of the most, emotional aspects of that is basically the missing of the fallen soldier that's not able to attend the event, and it was done exceptionally well with great reverence and clearly respect for flag and country. As Ms. Thayer had mentioned, Dr. Stanley Wrinkle, a personal friend, had a chance to attend his funeral. And the neatest thing about the ceremony was, I think, the tribute to the man is the joy that was actually in the room relative to the accomplishments and what he had meant to this community. And there was as much sorrow in his passing, there was a tremendous joy in celebrating his life. Dickerson and Dodgen schools, middle schools, each were recognized as National Blue Ribbon award-winning schools, and they had the award celebration or the presentation of those awards this past week in Washington, D.C. Dr. Carol Brink and members from her school and Dr. Laura Lee Hill from Dodgen and members from her school were able to attend. Those are fabulous, fabulous recognitions, and we want to congratulate them as well. And as Mr. Banks mentioned, Walton High School's next round of the playoffs this Friday at Raider Valley, hosting Colquitt County, who had a very challenging game against Lowndes earlier this season. It was a double overtime, and those are perennially two of the most talented high school football programs in the country. I know the Raiders have got their work cut out for them, but we wish them much success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity. Let me echo as well about Stanley Wrinkle. He is always a great presence at the retired Cobb educators luncheon. He'll be greatly missed. Obviously, has made a huge impact on our district and the county and community as well. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers still remain with his family. His daughter is one of our teachers, so certainly be thinking of them during this time. Because always, regardless that we know they have gone on to a better place, regardless of what kind of sickness and health issues they may or may not have had, and he certainly did not, but during the holidays is always a very tough time after losing a loved one, so we'll certainly be thinking of them. Rick Grisham, want to offer congratulations. He is gracing the cover of the School Transportation News as he was the recipient of the 2017 Leadership Award. So that is certainly congratulations are in order. And also it stands to mention again that a huge part of that recognition was the Stop Arm program that he has been very, very important in spearheading. You know, we talked about graduation rate and CCRPI earlier today, not necessarily in a positive light, but let me change that a little bit and mention that while Mr. Sweeney talked about Dickerson and Dodgen being the Blue Ribbon School Award recipients, Dickerson actually had the highest CCRPI score in the district of any school at 103. So congratulations to them. It's certainly a great accomplishment. State championships. Thankfully, Mr. Banks' mic was off when he said that. But state championships, congratulations to Harrison and Walton. Harrison 6A, Walton 7A in volleyball. And also men's class 6A cross country. From Alatoona, Adrian Hernandez was the individual state champion. While I ran track, I never quite understood how they can do cross country. That's just beyond my realm of understanding how they can run for that long. But congratulations to Adrian. And along those same lines, state football, we still have 5 schools in the state playoffs: Alatoona, Harrison, Hillgrove, McEachern, and Walton. So we definitely wish them the best in the upcoming playoff games. And you know, it's hard to believe that it's Thanksgiving next week, a week from tomorrow. So we have entered that time, you know, of holiday gatherings and family and such. But just want to wish all of our employees a happy and restful Thanksgiving break, and show much appreciation to all of the team members for everything that they do, because it's had the opportunity to speak to new principals group yesterday, to where we had 13 new principals, and then they're paired up with mentor principals, and just had a really good time talking in a small environment to the principals and expressing to them, that, it's in the classroom where the work gets done. We got a lot of distractions, but our team members always come through and bring success to the district, most importantly in the form of student academic achievement. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my remarks. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Sweeney, and then Mr. Scamahorn.
I'm sorry, and the superintendent brought up something, and I think it's important to know. The Lady Walton Raiders with the volleyball team, I think they may have topped out as the #1 ranked team in the country for the women's volleyball team, and they had a 40-1 record, which was just astounding. And the team that they lost to, and I think it was a 5-set match. And that team actually was defeated by other teams throughout the year, so that were higher ranked, and that Walton had also defeated. So I think they earned a #1 national ranking.
All right, thank you. Mr. Scamahorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things, and I appreciate the other board members bringing up Dr. Wrinkle. Many may not realize that even long after he retired as an administrator and deputy super, he continued to work with and for the school district, and he was one of the influential people to help us get our SPLOS passed. So, and then also I was privileged by his invitation to be part of to attend his Wednesday morning breakfasts at the exquisite McDonald's out in West Cobb, which they have every Wednesday. And Mr. Ragsdale, you were privileged to be invited there also. And he will be sorely missed on many different ways and many different levels. Then the other thing I wanted to mention, and thank you for mentioning Allatoona, but one thing you didn't mention, even though they're still in the playoffs, I have hopes that the Cobb County football team that brought the first state championship to Cobb County will repeat itself. So that, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scamahorn. Okay, there are two things I'd like to mention. First, Mr. Scamahorn and I both attended a recertification ceremony, if you wish, at Palmer Middle School yesterday for AVID. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. This is a elected class or program. The school has to raise the money, which I think they fund it through their cell tower revenue, and they have their teachers trained to help the kids become better students. And I won't go into a lot of the details, but when you hear one gentleman flew in from Houston, Texas. There was one woman from Savannah who's part of the AVID team, and then we had a district director. We've got kids, and I don't know, this may be happening in other parts of the district, but 7th and 8th graders that are learning to use Cornell notes in middle high, and they're learning to organize and plan how they study, find where they're having a point of confusion in their studies, and then collaborating with other students to work through it. And as the teachers are trained and as the students learn from this elective, it spills over into other classrooms and other teachers. And Palmer Middle School was pointed out as being one of the best. They're a demonstration school. People who are considering putting an AVID program in their school come to Palmer to see how they're doing it. So I want to mention them. And then GMEA, I did not get to attend, but the middle high school honors chorus had their thing, I guess, Monday afternoon, all day Monday and then evening. But there is a video floating around on Facebook that during a break, when all the kids are sitting in the audience, all the middle high chorus directors got on stage, having, to my knowledge, never rehearsed as a group, and did a wonderful rendition of Bridge Over Troubled Water. So if you have a way, or find me on Facebook, if you want to see that video, it's very beautiful. I'd love to see if we could eventually post it on our website. And if there's nothing else, with that, we are adjourned.